close it out, please welcome Jay Donaldson, everybody. Let him in.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I got a lot to get through, so I'm just going to jump right into it. Everything, everywhere, all at once died in the 90s. What does that mean? Corded phones, cursive writing, paper maps, CD-ROMs. Kurt Cobain literally died in the 90s. Newspapers, meeting somebody, dating them, getting to know them, and then having sex, died in the 90s. That's fucking small type. It says based on a true story. Where do we start? We start with this is a line. This is a line that represents everything that died in the 90s. Fucking great. Hello 90s. Goodbye. Let me give you an example. Newspapers. This is newspapers in the 90s. Beginning of time. 90s are looking great. Shit, we're out of business. This is what happened. And everybody that died in the 90s, everything that died in the 90s, had the same exact attitude as newspapers. And that attitude was, we got a plan, we're feeling confident, we've got this. They don't got this. Newspapers died, they put up a good fight. They had a headline that said, hey, paper's good. But nobody read it because it was in the newspapers. The fall of the newspapers caused something called the domino effect. No, wrong side. They caused the domino effect. This is the paper domino effect. What is that? I will explain. When papers died, people said, it's okay, they died because they were evil. And then they said, wait a minute. If newspapers are evil and newspapers are made out of paper, then paper must be evil. And they were right, and that caused the great paper scare of 1992. What had happened was, people now were searching for things made of paper to stop this evil in its tracks. And it looked high and low, and then they finally found something made of paper, and it was called maps. Which was great, because everybody hated maps already. They were hard to fold, they were hard to read, and worst of all, they were made of paper. So, we burned all of our maps in 1993, and maps made of paper died in the 90s. Turns out we needed maps. We immediately regretted not having maps. It was a really bad play on our part. So Congress passed the Great Garment Act of 1994. And what the Great Garment Act of 1994 was, is that you were required to have something not made of paper that was now a map. And you would attach it to your windshield or your dashboard. And this technology lasted forever. Or so we thought it would. Turns out it only existed in 1994. Garmin GPS units are the only thing invented in the 90s, used in the 90s, and then died in the 90s. They are the housefly of the 90s. It's a fucking awesome cloud. Keep an eye on that kid, he's going places. Okay, Borders was a company that existed in the 90s. And Borders saw the writing on the wall. Borders was, wait a minute, people might find out our books are made of paper. And they panicked. And they tried to save their lives by changing their name to Music and Coffee. It did not work. And all bookstores burned in 1995. And bookstores died in the 90s. And they were replaced by podcasts. So, while people were looking for more things made out of paper to be afraid of, somebody had an idea and they said, hey, I'm gonna make music smaller. And they did. They made it smaller and smaller and smaller till music was the size of a tiny mouse. And somebody said, stop! This is crazy! Isn't music just stuff in the air? Isn't it just living in the air? Why do we need to put it inside of mice? Just leave it in the air. Leave it in the air, and then when you want to listen to it, take it down and you dance to it. It'll be great. And America was buying what that person was selling. America said, we're on board for this. But where do we keep it in the air? Answer? Answer? Fuck yes! Give yourselves a round of applause if you got that answer correct. The cloud, and we fucking loved it. People were like, what else can we put in the cloud? And the cloud said, everything. Everything you hate can go in the cloud. It can be book, it can be paper map, it can be thing on paper, it could be things you like music and movies. Blockbuster says, what was that last one? Say, Blockbuster do movies. Can we not put movie in the cloud? Can we put movie in Blockbuster? What happens to Blockbuster? And America said, we hope you die. And we hope when you get to heaven, we charge you a late fee. Because you fucking suck. And Blockbuster actually did repent. Blockbuster said, we're going to be a kinder, gentler Blockbuster. We're going to change our policies. We're going to change our distribution channel. I'm just kidding. They just changed their slogan to, fuck you, we're Blockbuster, we're going to live forever. And it didn't work. And all Blockbusters were burned in 1997. And they were replaced by the cloud. People said, wait, what more can we put in the cloud? And the cloud said, like what? What do you want to put in the cloud? And they said, chords. We put chords in the cloud? Because in the 90s, we loved our chords. We were obsessed with our RCA chords and our speaker chords and our bungee chords. If it was a chord, we were on board. Just came up with that. And we were a little bit sad about this one because we loved chords so much, but we never solved the chord problem. And the chord problem was we could only make chords bigger and longer and curlier, like Arby's French fries. And so it was a bittersweet moment, and we said, Cloud, could you take our chords? And Cloud said, yes, I can take your chords. And so we burned all of our chords in 1998, and then we replaced them with our friend, Cloud. We were really emboldened now because we were on a hot streak. And we finally got to ask the question we wanted to ask from the beginning, but we didn't want to be too aggressive. So we finally asked the question, can we sex in Cloud? Cloud said, no, you guys are weird. But you can watch Sex in Cloud. Like movie? Yes, like movie. Can we chat in Cloud? Now you're getting it. Yeah, you can chat in Cloud and you can date site in Cloud. And that's when dating became a dumpster fire. And meeting somebody and getting to know them and having a relationship and dating died in the 90s. So, I'm just going to blow through the last couple of these. Little known facts about the 90s. In the 90s, televisions were three-dimensional. Believe it. If you Google this later, they had a width and a height and a depth. It was illegal to own a TV that was larger than 32 inches. This was for safety reasons. But fortunately, big television lobbied Congress and had a law passed, and that law said after 1999, you are no longer allowed to have three-dimensional TVs. It has to be 2D, which removed the depth, and you didn't have to measure entertainment systems before you bought a TV so that they would fit it was a real pain in the ass. And in 1999, it also said all TVs are required to be 85 inches or larger, which is still in effect today. Little known fact about music in the 90s. In the 90s, well, this is going to be hard to explain. There was something called bands. I'm going to do my best. Bands were people that got together or banded together. They would come up with a name, and then they would play music, and people would listen to the music in arenas, on the radio. I don't have time to explain what a radio is, but they did that. And bands were great all the way up until the 80s, because bands kept inbreeding, like the British monarchy. And so by the 80s, we had this incestuous thing called a band that was, all bands in the 80s were white men that looked like women and hard. So in the 90s, to save this species called band, the government passed a law, and that law was written into the Constitution. And that law gave the right for women to band. And so women were allowed to be fronting bands, and if they had a special permit, they could do something called an all-girl band. And the music, give it up, yeah, the music was fucking awesome. It was really great. We all loved it. It was amazing. Now, at the same time, manufacturing was booming in the 90s, which is perfect timing, because we needed to manufacture a lot of bands now. Because the demand for bands, because now music was good, the demand for bands just, went right through the roof. And we're like, oh gosh, we gotta keep cranking these out. And then we kind of started running into problems, because now like the pressure of the timelines and then getting it out and meeting the demand, and people start cutting corners, and they're cutting costs. And sadly, sometimes workplace accidents, and sometimes people died. So they said, hey, we gotta take a step back, and we gotta make music safe again. And somebody had a good idea. They said, wait a minute, instead of manufacturing an entire band, what if we just picked one person from the band, and we manufactured just a solo artist. And it worked. It cut manufacturing costs by 75%. And it was great. Unfortunately, all the bands died now in the 90s. And we, on top of that, had a real messy cleanup problem, because there were some bands that were still around, and they needed to transition. And so now we're stuck. What happens if you have a band, and you need to pick one person out of the band and promote them as a solo artist? It was tough. I mean, every band's different, right? And you've got a 1 in 4 chance of picking the correct person to promote as a solo artist. So the odds are stacked against you. It's almost impossible. No, they just always pick the one with tits. That was the solution. And it worked 100% of the time. But what? What if your band doesn't have tits? Now what are you gonna do? They worked on that problem for quite some time, and then they cracked that nut. They realized that if you pick the person who's standing closest to the microphone, that person can be the solo artist. Problem solved. So in conclusion, this is everything, everywhere, all at once that died in the 90s. It's everything, so I can't get to everything, but a lot of other things died in the 90s, like affordable housing, affordable education, affordable health insurance, affordable ski lift tickets, wood-burning fireplaces in Denver. Thank you guys, good night.
Oh, shit!